Hello there. Hope everyone is doing well. This is fulfilling a request to learn basic editing. And so I figured this would be the best way to do it through an online tutorial because then you can actually do the work with me and kind of follow along. And so I'm going to attempt to recreate the Game Changers update video that aired last week in church. This one right here. Okay, so I'm going to try and recreate that from start to finish. It's only 30 seconds, so hopefully it won't take too long, and hopefully I can explain kind of what I did um, uh, to a degree that is understandable. So I'm going to start from the very beginning. I'm actually going to use these clips that I put in Dropbox here because that's what I gave you guys. So this is Premiere Pro CC 2015. It's the latest update. Premiere updates their program every couple of months or so. I'm not a huge fan of all their updates, but you know, I guess they do it to improve. So when you open up Premiere, you're going to get this page that comes up, or a page that looks somewhat like it if you have a different version. But all of them are going to say New Project, and so you're going to want to say Create that, and then it's going to ask you where you want to save it. And so it's already selected for me. So I'm just going to hit choose, and then you can title it tutorial or whatever you need to title it. And so then I have this blank page up right here. So the first thing I like to do is actually bring in all my media. There's a couple of different ways you can do that. You can drag it in, or you can come down here, and you see this is my hard drive here, and you see all the media that I have is right there. You can do it that way, or you can go File, Import. I just like to drag it in. I think it's the quickest because I usually have my Finder open already. And so I'm just going to drag it in like that. And so there's all my media. So on Sunday mornings, we have a different size screen. We shoot, or our screen size is 1920 by 746, which is typically the screen size that you see when you go to the movies, or when you're at the movie theater. You're in that nice wide theater, the nice wide screen, so you can see everything. But for online videos, it's usually 1920 by 1080. And so I'm going to edit, let's see, do I want to edit in? I'll edit in our Sunday format, which is 1920 by 746. So what I want to do is create a new sequence. So I'm going to go to File, New, and then I'm going to go to Sequence. And so I'll have this come up here. So in order to edit in our Sunday format, 1920 by 746, I actually have to create a custom sequence. And so to do that, I click this right here, and then I actually go to settings. So I hit digital SLR, which is the kind of camera we use, and then 24 frames a second, which is the frame rate that you shoot in. So you want to try and set your sequence settings to the format that you filmed in. So if you filmed in 30 frames a second, you want to choose 30. If you filmed with a red camera, if you have $50,000 and you just bought a red camera, you're going to go right here. But for this situation, we have digital SLR, 1080p, 24 frames. And so in order to create that custom format, I have to go to Settings, and then you see frame size, so it's already 1920 by 1080, and then I'm just going to change that to 746. And there's my size. If I'm simply editing for something for like YouTube or Vimeo or something like that, I would just do regular 1920 1080, and then it would change to that. So, but today we can do it this way because that's the way that you guys originally saw it. And if you guys ever edit for a Sunday, this is how you would have to do it. So I have my music here. Music is a big part of editing well, I typically edit to music instead as opposed to um, adding my clips and then adding music after that. So the first so the first two editing terms you want to know are your in points and your out points. So your in point is where you want to start your clip, and then your out point is where you want to basically end your clip. So I'm going to choose my first in point right here. So here's the song that starts. So this is just a remix of Alive by Hillsong, Young and Free. And so if you go down to your arrow keys on your keyboard, if you hit that right key, that right arrow key, you see it's going frame by frame. See, 18, 19, 20, 21, so, and then if I hit back, the left one, it's going back frame by frame. So you can move one frame at a time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually spread this out a little bit so I can see my sound waves a little bit better. And so right now I'm just holding and dragging the cursor. But in order to start the song exactly where I want to, I'm going to hit that right arrow key. And as soon as I hear that song start, that's where I'm going to put my in point. So I hit the letter I. So in editing, you're going to have to use a lot of shortcuts. It makes it a lot faster, and it's a lot more efficient. So the shortcut for in point is just I. So all I did was hit the letter I to create my in point. And then I'm going to actually drag the cursor down. Let me actually get this a little larger. I'm going to drag it down to about 30 seconds, 31 seconds here, and I'm going to hit O for my out point. And that's my duration of the song and pretty much of the video. And so I'm going to hold and drag this, this right here and simply drag in my sound. So down here is your audio, and then up here is your video. So you see A1, A2, A3. Those are just different tracks. So if you have different audio tracks, you can layer them. Same thing with the video. You have different video layers. You can layer them as well. So here I have my song in here. And it's kind of an upbeat song. So the second basic editing terminology is your marker. I use markers a lot simply to mark where I want to be. So for this particular video, I want to edit to the rhythm of the song. So if you hear on the 1 and the 4, if you're a musician, I don't know why I just use musician terms, but you hear the beat of the song basically. So the way that I want to cut my clips, it kind of all depends on how you want to cut your clips, but for this particular video, I want to cut my clips on the beat of the song. So I'm going to use my marker to mark the spots where I want to cut. And so the shortcut for marker is M. Hey, M for marker, I for in point, O for out point. Pretty simple so far, right? So in order to play back, I'm going to hit the space bar, and I'm just going to start to hit M on the beat where I want to cut. Just like that. Pretty simple. And you can actually, if you double click your marker, you can actually title it. You can give it a custom title and a custom color, which is pretty nifty. It actually comes in handy when I do video announcements, because I title them like Detour announcement, iConnect announcement, that sort of thing. So it actually helps me for video announcements. Okay, so now that we have our markers laid out, I'm probably going to move the markers a little bit later, but I just wanted to give you an example. So we're going to get to the markers a little bit later. So the first clip that we're going to put in is the setup time lapse right here. So this time lapse, I don't necessarily need to hit an endpoint because I want it to start at the very first frame. So I'm going to hit that space bar and watch the clip for a minute. And I'm going to say, I'm going to drag that out maybe 9 seconds. And I'm going to hit my out point. Now for this, I don't need audio, so I'm actually going to drag that video clip. I'm going to hold and drag the video clip down in here, and there's my first clip. And in order, I'm just zooming in and zooming out, so Z for zoom, so you can see a little easier. And then in order to zoom out, I just do that. Just drag that spacebar, like so. Okay, so here's our first clip. Okay, pretty easy. So let's say we want to cut the clip right here. So third editing terminology that you want to know is your blade tool, which is B. The shortcut for blade tool is B. And you also have your blade tool right here. So you have your razor tool. They call it a razor tool. But it actually, if you see in parentheses, it says B because that's the shortcut for it. And the nice thing about this is that you can actually create your own shortcuts in Premiere. I can show you that another time. But say if you don't want your shortcut to be B because it's called the razor tool, maybe you want it to be R. So you can actually create all your own shortcuts to make it a little easier for you. So you play our clip. So I kind of stopped it on the beat there, and I'm going to hit B because that's where I want to cut it. And you can see that the nice thing is that it lines it up for you, because see, if I want to cut it right on where I put my marker, it actually lines it up for you, which is actually really nice. And that is because this little magnet tool is selected. If I deselect it and I hit B, it's not going to line it up for me. And so I could kind of misguide myself in cutting that. So I always want to have that selected when I'm, especially if I'm using the blade tool or the razor tool. So I'm going to cut right here. Okay. So in order to get back to your regular cursor, so I hit B to get the blade tool up, and then in order to get back to your regular cursor, the shortcut for that is A. Or you could actually go here and select. But as you see, like, in order, I don't know, it's all about being as efficient as you can when you're editing, because editing takes a while. So A is the shortcut to get back to the cursor, or you could always come back here if all else fails. So I made my cut, and so I'm just going to select this and delete that because I don't need that anymore. So now I'm going to go up to one of my clips here and find a clip that I like. So this was a clip that I like. I think this was one of the first ones that I used. So I'm just going to scrub through the clip and see where I want to start. And so I love lens flares, so I'm going to kind of start it right here. And I'll start it right here. And I'm going to hit that in point because that's where I want to start my clip. I'm going to play through it. And I'll just pause it right there and hit my out point. So once again, I don't need audio from this clip, so I'm just going to drag the little video, the little film reel onto here. Okay. And so this is where we made our next marker if we want to cut on the beat. So we can either leave this clip up for a couple bars, or I could cut it right here. I'm just going to cut it right here for right now. I'm going to hit that blade tool again and then cut. So I hit B, I cut, and then I hit A to get back to my cursor. And then I'm just going to select this clip and delete it because I don't need it anymore. And now I can look for another clip that I like. So we have Will here, Will the Great, Will M Band. Is it Will and Band or Will M Band? It's Will M Band, but it sounds like Will and Band, and you know. But hey, he has like 11,000 followers on Instagram, so I guess people know Willem Band. So we have Willem Band and somebody else taking a stage. So I'm gonna scrub through this clip a little bit.
Oh snap! What's up? Oh yes! Here we go.
So I'm gonna start it right here when they're actually moving and walking. So here we go. So you see I have my in point, and I'm gonna put my out point right here. And once again, I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna click and drag just like that. So I want to add more markers so I can actually cut in the proper place. So I'm going to start playing my clip and add the rest of the markers there by hitting M. Okay. So I think actually in the original video I extended this clip pretty long, so I'm actually going to move this clip down here. So all I did was highlight these two. I'm going to click and drag. Oops. Oh, that's another good tool you'll need to use. Command-Z, undo. I mean, that's for everything. But in the editing world, Command-Z, if you make a mistake or something like that, you can Command-Z it as many times as you want. Or as many times as, I guess, once you started. You know, once you get back to square one, then you can't really Command-Z anything that you didn't do. So, because I made a little mistake there, so I just Command-Z, and then it was done. Okay, so I'm going to highlight these two clips right here, and I'm going to drag them down here. And see, once again, you have that line there that's lining it up for me, which is really nice. So I'm going to put that right here, and I'm actually going to extend this. So if I move my cursor towards on the edge of this clip, you'll see this little bracket, and so I'm just going to click and drag that out to right here. Because everybody likes the time lapse, right? There's been probably 6 or 7 people that have come up to me and asked and told me that they had this great idea to make a time lapse of the setup, as if I hadn't thought about it already. So I think I want to drag it out even more to where they actually put out the chairs. So I'm going to do this again and highlight, drag it, and dragging right here. Okay, so and a lot of things with editing, it's a lot of trial and error. So you may do something and say, oh, I like this, or I don't like that, I'll change this or change that. So it's kind of all up to you. So I think as I'm hearing the song, I want to start playing, getting some of the other clips out when it goes into, when the music kind of comes down a little bit. So you can hear it here. So I'll pause it right there and hit a marker. And I'm going to hit my blade tool and cut it there. So I'm going to highlight this and then bring it back right here. So I'm going to go ahead and add more markers. Okay, that's enough. So really, I don't need these down here, but it's okay. It wasn't in vain because you learned how to mark your spot. Okay, so we have our first two clips here, and so I have my cursor up, and so up here in the timeline, if I click kind of anywhere, that's where my little cursor will go, where my little timeline thingy will actually go. So I'm literally clicking the marker. I'm going to hit my blade tool here and cut that. So I'm hitting B. Let me undo that real quick. So I'm hitting B, I'm clicking just to cut, and then I hit A to get back to the cursor, and then I just delete it, like so. So let's find another clip. So I'm going to take, we'll take another kind of getting ready clip here. Let's see if I can find a good one. All right, so here's one. One of the guys putting together the truss. So, and once again, I'm going to decide where I want to start my clip. So this looks like a good spot. I'm going to hit I for in.
There you go. See, now you get to be on camera like you're doing something.
And I want to get, and so I want the best part of the clip to be in the video. So I want to get it to where he's actually kind of twisting the wrench, you know, and working like for real. So I'm going to actually start the clip right here because our clips are pretty short because we're cutting kind of on that rhythm.
See, now you get to be on camera like you're doing something.
Okay, so I'm going to hit the O for out point. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to drag it in like that. And I'm going to select my B and cut like so. And I'm literally going to repeat that step kind of all the way through until I get to the end. So just so this tutorial is not too long and so you don't get bored, I'm going to scrub through and skip to the end here and add in my ending title. And I'll teach you and I'll show you how to fade out music and all that good stuff. So let's say we've gotten all of our clips together right here. So it looks pretty good so far. Cool. So we'll add a couple more clips just to make it fancy. We'll add a couple worship clips right here. And it's really loud, so watch your ears. That looks pretty good. Drag it in like so. And so I can actually extend this clip to right here to where that next marker is. Just like that. So I'm just clicking and dragging. So remember, when I move my cursor to the edge of the clip, I can drag it in or out. And because I have that magnify tool selected, it's sticking for me, so that's nice. Okay, so we got a worship clip, and we'll put another portable church clip in there. Have a nice volunteer setting up like so. Put my in point here. And hit that out point, and again I'm dragging, holding and dragging, just the video clip. I don't need the audio. And this is where I want to cut. Like so. And let's see, we'll get another worship clip in there. What other worship clips do we have? Well, this one's good. So I like the clip where the light, you know, is kind of shining on the lens a lot, so because I'm a big lens flare person. So I'm going to use that little piece. I'm going to hit my in point. And that's all I probably need. So I'm going to click and drag. I'm going to cut to where it needs to be cut, like so. So let's see what we have so far. Cool. Looks good, looks good. So I'm literally going to repeat that that pattern until really I feel like I'm done. And then again, this is very basic cutting, you know, using the blade tool and using your in points and out points. So this is how I started out learning. So once I'm done, let's say this is all I need here, and I'm gonna get my Game Changers logo clip. So this was made in a template, which was exported into a movie file. And so templates, that's a whole other monster that I'll have to show you another time. But I'm going to start it, let's say I'll start it right here. Hit my in point. Game Changers, make your mark. Right? And so we don't want this clip to show where it says your title here because I don't need that. But I can hit my out point right here when it kind of fades out to white, right? So I'm going to click and drag this in here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so I can see a little bit better. I hit Z for zoom, so I hit Z and then I just click so I can see a little easier. Okay, so in between the clips, I may want to put a dissolve. It doesn't really need a dissolve, and that's just a way to transition, but if you'd like to know where it is, you have your effects. If you go over here, and I can actually type in dissolve, and it comes up right there, and then I can literally drag it onto the clip. Actually, that's not the dissolve that I want. My apologies. That's not the dissolve I want. I want the transition dissolve. Here we go. So I I started typing in dissolve, and then I go down, I see video transitions, and so across dissolve, that's basically what it is. And so you have these different transitions here that you can use: dip to black, dip to white, film dissolve. I don't usually mess with these other ones a whole lot unless uh, unless I'm doing something creatively different or something like that. I'll use a cross dissolve, and I literally drag it. So I click and drag it onto in between the clip. And you can see as I scrub through it kind of slowly, it fades out like that. So you can really do it either way. Because this Game Changer clip starts out white, it almost transitions itself. It doesn't necessarily need a dissolve, so it's your choice. But the nice things about dissolves is that, like I said, it makes for a good transition to kind of tell people like, hey, this is the end. So we'll add it in there. Okay, so that's the end of our clip, and yeah, we're about 24 seconds in, so not bad. So what I'm going to do is I want to fade out my music once I'm done. So I'm going to select the clip right here. This is our music clip, and I'm going to go up to Effect Controls and click that. And here are all your, basically your control panel for that clip. So I'm going to hit Volume, and this is where you want to be, the level. So if you look at your volume here, it's kind of peaking a little bit. So we want to probably bring it down a bit. And this is your keyframe, which is also another monster. Actually, it's not a monster. It's more like a it's more like a friendly ghost, your keyframe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the keyframe. I'm going to hit OK because I don't want a keyframe just yet. So here's your volume adjustment right here. Okay. So typically, when it comes to music, you don't want to go over 12 decibels. Otherwise, you'll start to peak or you'll start to clip. I actually go a little bit higher just because I think for Sunday videos in particular, I'll go a little bit higher. But for this, we'll stay about, we'll bring it down a little bit. So usually if I'm on the volume of my computer, if I'm thinking somebody's going to be watching this online, I don't want the person to have to turn it all the way up to be able to hear it, you know? So I'll try to keep my volume between like 50 and 75%. And I'll bring the volume up right here. So we'll use, okay. So it's at -1 decibel. So in order to fade out the volume, so I have my clip selected here, and this is where you want to keyframe. So let's say I want the music to be completely out by right here. Okay, I'm going to come maybe to about here. I'm going to hit that keyframe, and then I'm going to scrub through my clip to about here, and then I'm going to bring the volume all the way down. And then you can actually hear it. So here are your keyframes here, and you can hear it fade out. Okay, so if I wanted to extend the fade a little bit longer, I can actually drag this out. So now it's all the way back here, or I can drag it in. So the farther I drag it out, the longer fade it's going to have. You know, and so the key with that is to really make it sound as natural as possible. You don't want it to simply cut out. You don't want it to fade out too quickly, but you also don't want to drag the fade out too long. So that sounded pretty good. Okay, so that's pretty good. And then I'm simply going to add another cross dissolve at the end, so we're not just cutting the clip out like it just did, right? So we don't want that abrupt cut. So I'm going to come back here. So you don't have it selected, you go to Effects, you can hit Dissolve, cross dissolve right here, and drag it like so. A shortcut for that, another shortcut, is if I come and I see my bracket, I can actually double click. I use the 2-finger click and then apply default transition, and that will also add a dissolve there. So that's typically what I do. There we go. And that's pretty much it. So I hope this helps. I hope this helps as a good starting point. Couple things I forgot to mention. Your workspace may not look like this. It may look a little bit different because you can actually untrack these different areas here. Like you can undock them. And so this may be over here, this may be up here, whatever. So in order to fix that, you can really have it any layout you want. In order to do that, you click Window, Workspaces, and you have these different workspaces you can choose from. And see right there, it changes. And so I just have mine at editing CS5, or yeah, CS 5.5, because where I started with Final Cut Pro 7, and so that's just kind of what I was used to beginning with, and so that's what I stick with. So I'm going to reset to my workspace. So that's the first thing. The other thing I wanted to mention is with the shortcuts. If your shortcuts are not working, you can actually go up to Premiere Pro CC right here and go to Keyboard Shortcuts. And you can click Final Cut Pro 7. That should work, or you can click Custom, and you literally have all of the different features and settings here that you can customize. So those ones that I mentioned earlier, the in point, the out point, marker, and your blade. So you can actually go in here, and if you want to customize, you can do that. So if you hit in, and it's actually called mark in, sorry about that. So if you hit mark in, and see I have it selected I, and same thing, mark out I. If I type marker, add marker is M, say it's right here. If I type razor, so in here it's called razor tool. I still call it the blade though, because that's again a Final Cut term. That's where I started. So razor tool B. So you can name it any way you want, and so that is in keyboard shortcuts. So Premiere, keyboard shortcuts, and yeah, that's how you can customize your different shortcuts. So I hope this helps, and yeah, hope to see some awesome projects from you guys.